Well, several House Democrats have sent a letter to House Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government Chairman Jim Jordan requesting that he disinvite Robert F. Kennedy Jr. from a Thursday hearing on social media censorship. Kennedy, who's an already scheduled witness, has faced fierce criticism over his comments on bioweapons research and COVID-19.
In case somehow you missed the controversy, during a dinner Q&A that was off the record, according to Kennedy, here's what the 2024 hopeful said in his own words.
And we need to talk about bioweapons. I know a lot now about bioweapons because I've been doing a book on it for the past 2.5 years, and you know, the technology that we now have to develop these microbes, we've put hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19, there's an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are because of the structure of the genetic structure, genetic differentials among different races of the receptors, of the ACE2 receptor. COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians and black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
Now, Democrats led by Representatives Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Dan Goldman, and Judy Chu argue that Kennedy has, quote, repeatedly and recently spread vile and dangerous anti-Semitic and anti-Asian conspiracy theories that tarnish his credibility as a witness and must not be legitimized with his appearance before the U.S. Congress, nor given the platform of an official committee hearing to spread his baseless and discriminatory views.
Jordan said on Monday that despite disagreeing with Kennedy, he still plans to have him at the Thursday hearing looking at big tech's collusion with out-of-control government agencies to silence speech. Jordan said, quote, yeah, I totally disagree with what he said, but he's a Democrat. I disagree with other things he said, too. Jordan went on, but we're having him because of censorship. Okay. It is obviously politically auspicious for Democrats to be able to attempt to prevent RFK Jr. from testifying at this hearing by leveraging this most recent controversy.
Yes.
Whether or not this most recent controversy is being fed by its political utility, in other words, whether or not it's a part of a political creation or it's being the fans he said the thing, but whether the fans are being flamed and the outrage cycle is what it is because of this upcoming hearing, which is politically disadvantageous to Democrats, is something that is going to be on folks' minds. Now, at the end of the day, it doesn't seem like it's going to stop Kennedy from testifying. And moreover, the efforts to silence, to shut him down, to stigmatize him by trotting out his family members. Again, that's been done in the last couple days. His sister came out with a statement saying that she strongly condemns his off-the-record statements. None of that seems to be working. RFK Jr. seems to be well practiced at it.
Sure.
Perhaps because this has been a strategy against him from the beginning, he seems to be immune, shall I say, to it.
Well, and what he's going to testify on is the role the federal government played in pressuring social media sites to take down his speech. So that's what he's talking about. I mean, he's not coming as like a scientific expert to give his knowledge about what scientific research is being done or where COVID came from or who it targets or all that. He's as a witness for something that did happen. The censorship of dissident COVID views because of federal pressure. That is an absolutely worthy subject. So you don't have to think what the speech in question is correct to want a witness on that. I think Democrats are using this moment of what he said that we discussed yesterday to try to delegitimize him, even though he is running as a Democrat. He's maybe that's
that's
all sorts
why
of perverse incentives.
there's not
right?
supposed to be a primary.
Right, they perceive that as a threat to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
I took particular issue in that there's another part of this letter from these Democrats where they take issue with, they say that he's insinuating that Jewish people are a different race. And they say, this is a quote, "This technique was used by Hitler, claiming that there are biological differences between ethnic or racial groups to portray Jews as a lesser form of humanity, stepping stone to justifying their annihilation." That is just BS. That is a double standard because you referenced this the other day, how Whoopi Goldberg got in trouble on The View for saying that the Holocaust was bad, but it wasn't a racial issue.
Because Jews are white.
Jews are white people. And then she got piled on because, no, Jews are part of ethnicity. So it feels like this is like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. Exactly.
Now, look, if the argument is that obviously Hitler didn't think that Jewish people were white, and that is why he conducted a genocide, then obviously that's true. But there is something odd about, look, the New York Times had to walk back its initial claim that Kennedy did not cite any paper that demonstrated that there were distinct cleavage sites on the cells of Ashkenazi Jews that affected COVID's ability to infect, right? And had to walk that back because he did cite to a paper which did show that, not just about Ashkenazi Jews, but also the Amish and some other groups.
It was an early paper. I don't know that it's accurate.
I don't know either.
He was saying that paper exists, and that's what it said.
And what's so frustrating about all these media cycles is instead of just digging into the science, I'm not a scientist, instead of explaining to me why either that article has been debunked, which, they say things like RFKJr argued that COVID spares Jewish people, which is not what was actually said. There's plenty to quibble with what he actually said. I do think that it's a bit of a leap to say there are bioweapons programs, which the Chinese have accused us of having race-specific bioweapons targets, and we've accused the Chinese of having race-specific bioweapons targets. There seems to be evidence. There have been multiple articles written, reporting done since the 90s, and statements from senior members of government, the secretaries of defense, about the development of ethnic bioweapons. That seems to be a true statement. So if ethnic bioweapons exist, the idea of being able to develop them to target populations that's the goal. That's the whole goal of a bioweapon. Yeah. So if we're talking about COVID, which has origins in China, the accusation here, and he did not make the accusation that China actually did it, but that there are theories that given that bioweapons research exists, that some people think that COVID could be a part of it. That seems like a bit of a conjecture, but not necessarily the craziest thing to say in an off-the-record conversation. And then the next leap, which is not necessarily connected to it, is there is some evidence that COVID affects some populations more than others, which we all know to be true.
Like many other diseases, like many other...
Right, because there are ethnic disease patterns. Black people get sickle cell anemia. Ashkenazi Jewish people suffer from Tay-Sachs disease. White people suffer from sickle cell... what is it? Cystic fibrosis. There's all of these these variations exist, but to acknowledge the variation is now being characterized as doing race science in and of itself.
I do think it's worth being a little bit more cautious about the claims. What appears to be what is likely to be the truth is bad enough that there were substandard safety lab practices. Anthrax has escaped other labs before. Lab accidents kill people. Things are being designed, experimented on that a lot of people, even in the scientific community, have been warning against for forever. That, again, the federal government shut down these kinds of research because they were dangerous. There are a lot of concerns about what was being funded in Wuhan. It involves the U.S. government and the Chinese government. There's a lot of blame to go around. Let's talk about that. I think some of the racially targeted
there's
bioweapon
no evidence
is
that
out
it was
there.
a bioweapon.
So let's be careful how we bring these things up.
Yeah, and that's what you should be upset about, that RFK Jr., again, I don't know how upset. It is a private conversation. It's not like he took to the debate stage and was trying to make this case, but I think, there is no evidence.
I don't know if it was a private conversation. There's a dispute over, whether this was...
It was a dinner. It was pretty... It seems clear from the context that this is not something that he was broadcasting as part of his campaign platform or anything. But
there are journalists in the room.
Sure, but no one's arguing that he's running on COVID as a bioweapon. Like, that's absurd. Like, nobody could plausibly argue that that's something that he wants to be foregrounding. He's been running this campaign for months now, and he's never said that out loud before. So the point of the matter is, I would argue that it is negligent to make accusations about COVID being a bioweapon when there's absolutely no proof of that. There isn't any proof of it, and you shouldn't even imply that that's the case since that's such a weighty allegation. However, saying, the two disconnected statements, there are bioweapons, and COVID does have disproportionate effect on some groups rather than others, while I think is dangerous and sloppy to make even in an off-the-record conversation, even in a private conversation, is not the same thing as making an argument that COVID was designed to kill, I guess, Chinese people and to kill white people and black people, but to not kill Jewish people.
It killed tons of Chinese people.
And it killed tons of Jewish people.
It's not immune. This is not like a Passover situation or something.
Yes.
Like people of all races have been. No one was immune to this.
No.
The younger people have a much less bad time than the elderly. We say it's a bioweapon against the elderly. Still, young people have died from it.
Yes. It also killed fewer black people in Africa than it did in the United States of America. Right. There's all kinds of nuance here in this conversation. But what is disturbing, as I think from my perspective, is the media's disinterest in criticizing what was actually said, and instead their commitment to specifically using this language. You see it everywhere once you open your eyes. Like the specific language about how this kind of Passover language, like that RFK Jr. made the case that Jewish people were immune, or that it was designed because the implication being that Jewish people are controlling
which is a popular stereotype. It's a racist one, and it needs to be refuted and combated as often as possible.
But that is why
so I agree with that, but
that's the problem. They're characterizing in that way because there's no stereotype about the Amish controlling the world, and so it's less stigmatizing to say, well, RFK Jr. said this crazy thing about how the Amish secretly are the only ones that aren't hurt by.
And in a lot of the coverage, they did drop that he had said this, that it harmed fewer Chinese people and Jewish people, and the media in so many reports just dropped that he'd said that about the Chinese
and the Amish.
Yeah.
It became and so that's
well,
the
but
question.
I don't know. But he didn't say specifically.
No, not in there. But then in his follow-up statements, he was very clear about all of the people that the study that he cited pointed to as having disproportionately less deaths. Again, even he didn't claim in that statement that people were immune or that they didn't die, just that there were disproportionately affected black people and I guess maybe Chinese people. Anyway, I don't know. This is an interesting one for me, and I'm sure we'll hear more from RFK Jr. soon at this hearing. Undeterred. More rising
after this.